Paul Frobley.
Good morning. Welcome. Monday morning on Rochester Today. I'm Andy Brownell, and it is my extreme pleasure to welcome back to the program after a bit of a hiatus, Rochester City Council member Shaun Palmer. Good morning, Shaun.
Morning, Andy. Thank you very much for having me on. We've missed being on the show, but it's been a fun last 5 months.
Yeah, I'll put my own personal opinion in a little bit. I was disappointed in the election results. So I guess, but I am glad we get to continue talking to you as a member of the City Council.
Well, I'm not going to say I'm not disappointed, but I will tell you that we have 7 good City Council members coming up, and I'm excited to work with everybody. I've met with 2 of them already that are newly elected, or 3 of them, I guess. And I will tell you that we have a good bunch coming on, and I think that we'll be moving ahead, and Rochester should be proud of our elections.
And moving ahead, we have some challenging years in front of us as far as being a community with the opportunities that are being presented to the city. But along the way, we're going to face some pain, let's put it that way, as far as getting around our community.
We're going to have 18 city blocks ripped up. We're working on that. I'm proud that the city is thinking ahead with Mayo Clinic and coordinating that. So I'm excited about that. I do have to start, though. I was listening to you guys talk about the Foundation House, and I did get to visit the Foundation House when I was a tour guide at Maywood in 1976 and 77. And
I'm jealous now.
It's an absolutely gorgeous house. And one of the things I remember, as you come up to the newel post, there's a cap, and you open up the cap, and he would put coins from different countries in there, and from all his travels. And so it was impressive, and working at Maywood was impressive, and that was enjoyable. But yes, I've been to the Foundation House.
One of the few non-male bigwig people out there who's been inside the Foundation House, at least as far as I know. I have doctor friends who have been there for events. And I always say, hey, get me snuck in there somehow. Yeah. End of discussion.
And the neat thing, being a retired city building inspector for 25 years, I've been in most of the Mayo buildings, the Plummer building, and Sebens, even in the greenhouse when they had that on top of that. It was a neat experience to be in all those buildings.
Yeah, we live in an interesting community. It's very, very unique for a city this size to have the, infrastructure that we have.
Well, and the visitors we have, and as you've talked in the past, it's the number of restaurants that we have that are unbelievably great restaurants here. And we have a great community. And, running citywide, you don't realize how great the city is and the different neighborhoods. And for me, getting into neighborhoods, knocking on doors and streets that I had not been in 25 years was nice. And just talking to nice people in Rochester. And majority of people were very welcoming and hopeful for what's going to happen in Rochester.
I was going to ask you, you've campaigned within a ward before, but this is the first time you've gone citywide in a campaign. Number one, how many shoes did you go through? That's a lot of walking.
Just 2 pairs. We had 22 volunteers hang 19,000 door hangers. And,
oh, gosh.
And I was in your neighborhood hanging door hangers. I didn't go all the way up the hills because it's always fun to watch your app on the thing and see the map and all the different spots you stop and talk to people and knock on doors. We raised almost $71,000. I got probably over 600 people gave me $100 or less. I'd get checks from people I didn't know for $25, $50. And that's heartwarming. And that's a neat thing to hear. And we had a close election, but again, I'm looking forward to a great city council.
Was there any surprises from the conversations you had with folks as you were walking around and knocking on doors?
Not really. As taxes for people, older people who are property taxes are tough. A lot of people are confused, the national, and are you Republican or Democrat? We're nonpartisan. Our charter says that, and I'm proud of that. I think that confused some people. A lot of people are just busy, and you have to respect that.
Yeah, it is amazing when you go through neighborhoods and see, nobody's home because everybody's at work. I imagine you ran into that quite a bit.
Yep, and then you're in a neighborhood and if you're just hanging door hangers and you walk through and you see some just immaculate lawns and great neighborhoods and stuff, and then you hit some neighborhoods and you're like they haven't mowed the grass or the bikes are all laying around, and it was eye opening. You got to get out of your car to walk a neighborhood. If you're going to buy a house, get out of your car, walk the neighborhood is be my advice.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. Why don't we take a quick break, and then we can come back and dive into some things happening with the city moving forward. We're talking with Shaun Palmer, Rochester City Council member. It's Rochester Today on News Talk 1340, KROC AM at 96.9.
Paul Trombley.
Welcome back, Rochester Today. It's Monday, and we are with Rochester City Council member Shaun Palmer on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. The City Council meets today, Shaun, and I see you have a full agenda.
We do. We kind of push things off till after the election. We've got a big consent agenda items, and then we've got a lot of hearings. We have 9 hearings that we have to go through, which will take a long time. So,
I see that there is an item dealing with the Regional Sports Center. Maybe you can update us on where that is in process.
Yeah, that is. We're going to be hiring our consultant to help us out build that, awarding that contract for construction manager. And we should have a site location by our December 9th meeting, which is our last meeting of the year. And December 2nd, we will set our tax levy for the final vote. Hopefully that'll be a 6-1 vote.
Okay. Well, I look forward to finding out where that new regional sports facility will be built. Is it still a situation where the IBM site's kind of on the off list?
Nope, they're on the list, and we have 3 that are on the list, and that's about as far as I can go in that conversation.
Okay. I also see that there is a significant project taking shape along Center Street on the east side.
Yep, that's our H3. That's our reports and recommendations. So all the way from the Zumbro River Bridge east to 11th Avenue. In 11th Avenue, they're proposing to put a roundabout, mini one in, and a bunch of bike lanes. And they've got options 1, 2, 3, and 4. 33 people like 1, 2, or 4, and 14 people like option 3. And less than 50 people participated in this survey. So it's going to be interesting. It sounds like we're going to eliminate all parking.
Oh, no.
And have 2 bike lanes in there. So we'll have to wait to see what the city council comes up with.
Are the people along Center Street in that area aware?
They were notified, but reading the comments, I would say very few of them responded or came. I'm assuming that most of them are rentals.
That's what I was guessing as well.
Yeah, and there's a church there, and the sad thing is, or the good thing is that within a quarter mile behind all these houses on Center Street is a nice bike trail that is separated from traffic, and it runs all the way to Broadway. So that's that's an alternative for people. So having more bike lanes just that close, I don't know if all the city council is going to like that idea or not.
And I guess from my perspective, if I was a person living in one of those rental properties, getting rid of my on-street parking, it might be a surprise for some if they hadn't been paying attention.
Well, it will be a surprise. And, that's probably the hardest thing on the city council is, on North Broadway, we're going to redo it next year. And as soon as the shovels show up, I'll get phone calls going, what are we doing? And we've planned this for 3 years. And so being involved in stuff is important, and people are busy, but still you need to be involved. I go back to the Silver Lake Dam. The Friends of Silver Lake had 125 people show up to a get together just to say that they didn't like what was happening at Silver Lake Dam. So here we had less than, I think, 47 people turned out for this event, and you could see it was a little bit bike involved.
Yes, and I speaking of bikes and recreation, I see another recreational pathway or trail is being planned. Again, Southeast Rochester, not too far from me and not too far from the fairgrounds.
No, and that's kind of an exciting trail. And the reason that's exciting is that the CP owns that track, and they were good enough to negotiate with us on how do we put this in this trail. And so that was a piece that was missing, and that will connect up with our bigger trail system that goes under Highway 52. And if you think about that whole area out there by Fleet Farm and all those houses and stuff, they have no safe way of getting from there to Rochester without going on the highway. And you can't ride your bike or walk on the highway.
So that bike path will hook up to Meadow Park and go over to Willow Creek and then shoot out to the new Game Haven, or the county park that is adjacent to the Game Haven area.
You're correct.
Okay.
And so that was one of the bonding issues that we had with the state that they funded for us, was part of that trail. But this trail here is part of some state funding, but it's right along the railroad tracks. Some of the neighbors weren't a big fan of it, which I can understand. But the goal would be at some day for us to have that entire corridor either share with the train, or to eliminate the train there. There are some businesses that use it still. Tamarack uses it.
Yep.
The sheet metal people have left. In Libby's warehouses out there. So, or I guess Seneca, being old, it's Libby's, but Seneca is out there, and so they still depend on rail. But it's nice that the railroad was willing to work with us. It's kind of the things we always say is there's God, the railroad, and the Corps of Engineers, and they all think they're more important than the other one. So it's nice to see the railroad cooperate with us.
All right. And I guess the big elephant in the room would be Mayo Clinic's bold, forward, Unbound initiative and its impact on the community, which is going to become very, very apparent over the next several months. And there are items dealing with that already on the council agenda.
Well, for them to plan, they'd like us to vacate our right-of-way on 3rd and 4th Avenue, which I believe we're going to do. And that will change the traffic patterns in Rochester greatly. And so we'll have to do that vacation so they can get their plans going. The nice thing about it is that they recognize that there has to be a pedestrian walkway through the building. And so they will have a pedestrian. We don't know if it'll be on the 3rd or 4th Avenue side yet. They're designing. But that'll allow pedestrians during business hours to walk to their property, either a hallway, or I don't know if they'll have businesses along the side or not, but you'll be able to get through there. So that'll be exciting to see. The Osmond building's coming down, the old courthouse is coming down, that parking ramp is coming down. Lourdes is starting to come down. They're taking some of the stone off the face of that. But this hearing, that's open to the public, and that's G4 on our agenda, and it's a big deal for Rochester, and will set our future building for the Mayo Clinic.
And for folks who, when we say 3rd and 4th, we're referring to the two one-way streets, one running north, one running south, which in that core are the main arteries, right? North-south arteries.
And we have very few of those. If you literally would have to go, the only one that really goes through is Broadway, if you think about that. And then 3rd Avenue pretty much goes through, and that's in the southeast area. And so, this is going to take some traffic engineering, and they've worked well with everybody. 6th Avenue northwest goes to southwest. That will become more of a throughway for people to get into town. But they have a great plan, and these people, I say these people being Mayo Clinic, have really thought about the future of healthcare, farther than you and I could think ahead. And I always kind of go back to, their plan is to get rid of the Methodist Hospital at some point. But if you think about all the different hospitals Rochester's had, we've had the Worrell, we've had the Kaler Hospital, we've had the Colonial. There's probably 10 different hospitals that we've had in Rochester that they've just outgrown the usefulness of them, and they go away.
As they always say, stuff changes, nothing stays the same.
Well, we have some people in Rochester who are very mad. I think it's the 1914 building's torn down. They bring that up, but we've got 3rd Avenue that we've saved some of those buildings, and they now have a historic district, and that's a step forward for that. But I would agree that we've torn a lot of buildings down in Rochester. But Mayo Clinic has done a lot to preserve. We go back to the foundation house. You go back to Mailwood. You go back to CC Heights. You go to the Palmer building. You go to the old Mitchell Center, which is our library that you and I went to as a kid. They've saved those buildings, and things have changed. If you remember, the old Harwick building was nothing but records. Now they have built offices in there and windows in there, and they've added on to that building. And so, you got to give them a lot of respect for what they have saved, and the money they put into these buildings to save them is a lot.
And you mentioned the Damon parking ramp coming down. That'll be beginning sometime in the middle of next year, as I understand it. Has Mayo shared any plans with the city concerning, I guess, where those folks are going to park, or how you're going to move? Because that's patient parking largely, the Damon.
And they're building concurrently. They will be building 3 parking ramps at the same time in Rochester. One of them being at St. Mary's for their employees, and then 2 downtown. I believe one is staff and one is going to be for patients. They're going to change how they do that. The Grand parking ramp is right there. I think this is the second Damon Parkade that you and I have known.
Yep.
So
of course, the other one was at the site of the Gonda.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
So,
I'm just thinking in the interim. I understand, parking will be added, but there's going to be a transition period here where parking will be, I imagine, extraordinarily difficult during the time the one ramp goes down before they actually construct new facilities.
And, they have worked really, really hard to plot this out. The other thing we have a big advantage at is the BRT finally got funded fully. And when the BRT, bus rapid transit, gets going, you're going to be able to park out by Cascade or park by the old Fullerton lot and grab a bus within 5 minutes and get to the Mayo Clinic buildings and not have to worry about parking, which I think will be a huge advantage for everybody. I think the numbers that I've always heard is that will eliminate 7 different parking ramps that we don't have to build downtown, which is huge.
Yeah, well, there really isn't any more. You're running out of space to build parking ramps.
Well,
in the first place.
If you go north of Mayo Clinic building, you go north of the old Lourdes, there's 1, 2, 3 full city blocks that are empty right now.
Oh, that's true.
And so, this is a logistics nightmare, how they're going to be doing this and working with everybody to do it. You talk about infrastructure, you talk about sewer and water, having to keep all that stuff running, and how big do you need it to be? And, for the city of Rochester, we have, let's say, a water main that's 30 years old. Do you change it now, or do you wait for 30 more years to change it?
Right.
Those are decisions that we have to make. And do we allow the contractor that's doing it for Mayo Clinic just to go through and do everything and coordinate it and be cheaper for everybody, more efficient? Those are good items that we have coming up. I really appreciate what Mayo is doing as far as a website that you can go to, or an app that you have that can say this is closed, this is how you get to your appointment. And I think that's going to be hopefully helpful for people, so they don't just drive downtown and go, how do I get there? And
I think that's going to be the key for the next couple of years, at least, that if you think you're just going to go down there like you always have gone down there and take care of your appointment, you better check. And just like going to the airport, make sure you know what you're doing before you go down there, because things are going to be dramatically changing probably on a weekly basis. In
8 to 10 years, this is going to be, once it's done, they're going to have a great medical campus downtown. It'll be well served with the BRT. There's some exciting things happening there. But like you just said, I might have been there on Monday, but on Thursday I can't get there anymore.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to have surprises, and that's important.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to communicate that as well through our website and on our broadcast as these developments take place. Try to ease the pain during this process.
Yeah, and that's our public hearing G4. The first 3 public hearings we have are for unpaid bills for weeds and snow and stuff. And so those will be contentious when people say, I didn't know I had to cut my weeds. And then we'll go to G4 for that. And then we've got annexation for City View Flats, which is a new subdivision coming up off of College View Drive. And then we've got our UDC text amendment. So Unified Development Code is something that we installed 2 years ago. And we do an update every year. And there's amendments to that. Part of it is historic preservation. People are up in arms because they're getting more staff decisions than committee decisions. So that's G9.
Okay.
So
well,
I can't imagine we won't be out of there by midnight.
Okay. Well, you have a long day ahead of you. We do need to take a break for news, but we'll continue with our chat with Rochester City Councilmember Shaun Palmer in just a moment on Rochester Today at News Talk 1340, KROC AM at 96.9.
E-News app.
Good morning. Welcome back. Rochester Today. I'm Andy Brownell. It's Monday, and we're chatting with Rochester City Councilmember Shaun Palmer. And I guess, Shaun, it's that season again where those pesky large blackbirds begin to populate our community and make a mess of things.
Well, we're lucky in Rochester. We have an educated crow population because they've learned that if you're banging pots and pans, they ain't going to do nothing to us. So they're coming in and hiding in the trees more and more. So the USDA has rules and regulations of what you can do. They now have, I have to laugh at this, air rifles that they're going to use to encourage them to leave after they see a few of their friends leave involuntarily. So they're using a lethal method with an air rifle to shoot crows, is my interpretation.
Oh, really? So we finally stepped it up.
We had to, because our crows are smarter than the average crow, and they've learned that making noise and lasers don't do any harm to them. So they've learned that this isn't going to work. So they have steps that you can use. The federal government does, and we've applied for that application, and that's what we're going to be told about on H1. I would prefer it to be with the park department because they're the ones that are doing it, which means the park board. But typically when it gets really tough, the park board likes to slough it off to us. So, and that's just the park board. And I enjoy the park board, so I have to give them a little bit of grief.
So do you hear a lot of critical comments from folks who worried about the welfare of the crows?
The crows don't have many friends. Now, if you want to talk about the turkeys in a neighborhood, or you want to talk about the geese at Silver Lake, or you want to talk about the deer in your neighborhood, I will tell you, half the people love the deer and half the people hate the deer. And half the people love the geese at Silver Lake and half of them hate the geese at Silver Lake. So that's a political one that you kind of want to sidestep. But you got one neighbor that wants to feed the deer in the backyard. And the DNR tried to a couple years ago to try to slough off their rules to us. And that would have meant that our inspectors would come out and measure your bird feeder. And if it was less than 6 feet tall, you'd be in violation. And we're like, we don't want to get involved with that. And so that's a DNR. If you have a deer problem, call the DNR.
Okay.
So anyway, our crows are, we got to keep them done. I don't know. If you walk down the street at 7 o'clock at night and you don't look up because you hear splat, 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 it's ugly, unhealthy, and that we should probably have done a better job of getting rid of them. But this is the step we have to take.
All right, and a lot of folks would say about time.
Yes, I agree with that. So,
and I also noticed the agenda has an item dealing with the future of Silver Lake, the actual body of water.
Yes, that's H2. That's page 621. We have a 692-page agenda, but that's not a lot because 6 of our consent agendas are the airport. So anytime we have to deal with the airport, we get a lot of federal rules. So let's go back to H2. We're going to be accepting the grant agreement from the DNR on the removal and replacement of Silver Lake Dam. Now, we've referred to it as a modification in the past, and I always have to clarify this. Flood control will not ever be affected by this. We'll have the same, if not better, flood control, so this is not going to affect that. And number 2, the elevation of the lake will always remain the same. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. So this is a grant agreement that was granted to us to remove the dam, $2.3 million. They call it a low-head dam, and they want that removed, and they would like to replace it with a longer dam that will have fish ladder in it, so the fish can go up the lake, up the river, and to the lake. And so we're voting on that. That's H2. That just means we're accepting the grant. Doesn't mean that we're moving ahead yet. We don't have construction drawings. Be interesting to see where the costs come in on this later on, because with Mayo Clinic doing their projects and everything else coming up, it could be more spendy than we think it is. But we cannot use sales tax dollars. On our last election, we said it would not use it for the dam removal. We do have $5 million set aside from our sales tax to dredge the lake, and that should get done within a year or two, and that's overdue that we do that. So it's a long, drawn-out procedure. Most people don't realize that upstream from the Silver Lake Dam, we have 9 low-head dams, and so you can get to the Bear Creek right behind the elementary school, or you can get up there by Soldiers Field Golf Course. There's a low-head dam, so that's as much fish habitat you're going to get. So I've not been a fan of this project, but we'll see if I have 4 other council members who think this is a great, wonderful idea.
Do you have any idea how long it's going to take for them to actually draw up plans and get actual I'm going to use the word concrete because that would probably be the most costly aspect of this other than labor. Cost estimates?
They're working on that right now. We funded this last spring, I think $900,000 for them to come back with design and bids. I wanted just the design, but we're doing design and the bid it to see what it's going to cost. I would suspect February or March we'll get those. So.
All right. And looking at the drawings and I guess they're concepts at this stage because we haven't seen actual designs, the location of the dam is moved quite a bit to the east of the bridge.
750 feet on both sides.
What's going to be in that area that is currently water that will no longer be water?
It will be a sheet dam. So they drive pilings or sheets down, and then they backfill it with rock. And so that rock will hold up that water. And then to the south side, there will be the fish channel and a channel for you to kayak down. And that's what takes the length, because the fish can only jump so far. That's the length that's involved with that.
Okay, so you're going to see essentially a ravine going down to what would have been the river.
Correct. And then across the street from the dentist office there is like a holding area, wetlands. And so the theory on the dam, which this is kind of interesting, how do you control the water? Well, the dam doesn't do anything for flood control is what we've been told. So this dam will be 3 times longer, or wider, I should say. It should be 3 times wider so that more water can go over the top and doesn't have to have gates that are open mechanically. And so that's kind of where people get confused is why, how are you going to do this? Well, if you're 3 times wider and you have a foot of water come over the top, that makes more sense. But then you have this swampy swampland down there that they don't know what they're going to do with. And a lot of people are upset already about the vegetation that's around the lake that's kind of outgrown its usefulness. How are you going to maintain the swampy swamp area? And that kind of scares people.
Well, the first thing that comes to my imagination when you say swampy swamp area or wetlands is mosquitoes.
That would be a little bit of your problem, and I'm assuming other animals would love to live in that. And you look at. I guess my criticism is we had a project for water to make it better because of fecal matter from the geese. So we planted all these wildflowers. They're now 6 foot tall. People can't see the lake, and nobody's maintaining it because the one department got the grant, the other department was supposed to maintain it without any money, and it's overgrown. So now what's going to happen 5 years after this is built with the swampy swampland? That's what worries people.
All right. We'll move on, but we need to take a break. And we'll be back in just a moment with Rochester City Council member Shaun Palmer. It's Rochester Today at News Talk 1340 KROC AM at 96.9.
Paul Trombley.
It's Rochester Today, Monday morning. I'm Andy Brownell, and we are with Rochester City Council member Shaun Palmer. Last week, Shaun, you had a discussion during a study session, I guess you call it. I probably have that wrong. Concerning closing time for bars. And there's a number of establishments in the community that have permission to stay open or continue to sell alcohol until 2 a.m. instead of the regular closing time at 1. I know this is a discussion that goes back many years statewide. But I guess my question for you is, why was it brought up for a review, for possible revision this time around?
Well, the mayor always touts that we're the city for health, and thought that we should close at 1 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock. And so the city clerk's office was charged with coming back with recommendations. There's probably 7 or 8 establishments that have a liquor license that allows them to sell till 2 o'clock in the morning, a.m. And I think the cost of that was like $200 extra. It's an add-on for them.
Sure.
But they literally get, and this surprised me, this is self-reported, 20 to 30% of their revenue is from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m.
Wow.
And so that yeah, wow.
I'm asleep, trust me.
Well, and I think the mayor said nothing ever good happens after midnight, and I'm not going to deny that, but in my younger days, but yeah, no, that was kind of a surprising thing, and they are called a study session. It used to be the committee of the whole, and we had that presentation, and that was eye-opening for this. And if you put dancing in, that costs you an extra $4,000 to have a dance permit.
Really?
Yes, and the rationale for that is people bump into each other, people get a little more ornerier, and it costs us more time and money to take care of those items. And so that's
you guys
why
never saw the movie Footloose, apparently.
I guess not. So that's kind of the thing. It was kind of interesting because Crave has a permit to stay open until 2, and they were talking about the New Year's Eve parties. And I'm like, well, that's once a year. And most of the time midnight hits, and about 12:15, most everybody's leaving. So, maybe they stay open until 2.
Yeah.
There's a theater in town that has in south part of town on Main out there. They have the permit to stay open until 2.
I imagine they might do some special events.
They might do some special events. And so, the mayor said, I'm just quoting from an email she sent out that said that, we could always give special licenses, or, if you have a big convention in the town, that the bars could stay open or whatever. Mayo Civic Auditorium has that they could stay open until that time. So, when we do a committee of the whole meeting or what we now call a study session, they present information to us. They're trying to get feedback from us. Part of the problem that we learned is that we have to say, yes, we agree, or this is our questions. If you don't, they're trying to read body language, like, did Shaun blink an eye? Did he shake his head? They're honestly trying to ask you. So then the following meeting then comes up the voting on it, and we can make amendments to that or change that. But that's typically what they did. This was an interesting one because the 11th, which is Veterans Day, we always have off. That's a state law. So Monday we didn't have our meeting, so it was last Wednesday that we had our meeting. And then part of that, when we talked about that, then will appear on our agenda today. The other part that we had on that meeting was the police department got one-time grant money. Part of where that money is going to go is to Exxon. It's
the body cameras.
The body cameras, and when they do that, Exxon, we got a good deal to increase the length of our contract and keep the prices at the $20-24 amount. And they added a lot of things. And the police chief was very happy that we've got the best deal in Minnesota. We are by 30% lower than the county, 40% lower than Bloomington. And so they're really happy because we work with them on their product.
And I imagine a big part of that is the storage aspect of it.
The storage part of it, and then also they have AI for report writing, and so a lot of the officers have to write reports, and so when they start the report, the AI will help them with the report, and the cameras help them go back and look at it and say, yeah, this is what happened, or this is the time it happened. Our cameras is an investment for our officers. Like I always point out, Austin doesn't have them. But it solves a lot of problems for a lot of people. It protects the citizens. It also protects our officers. They can also, which I find interesting, if the supervisor is sitting in the office and they haven't heard from Officer, Sue, they can say, hey, turn on her camera and watch what's going on. If they think that she pulled over somebody that might be suspicious, they can look at her camera live, real time, and they also can do that from the vehicles, which I think is a big safety factor for our officers.
It is amazing, the technology. I was having a conversation with the sheriff a couple of weeks ago, and when he started out, you basically were sent out with a flashlight and a two-way radio.
Yeah.
And your sidearm, obviously, but yeah. And now it's almost like you're in the White House operations room.
Which is a good thing, because in the old days they kind of knew, that Sue was a bad person, or we've had trouble with her before, and now you have a lot of people in town that a couple of years ago they pulled over a guy for speeding in Southeast Rochester, and he was wanted for murder in Chicago.
Yeah.
The officers. We just increased our budget. Our levy increased by 9.8%. And part of it was that we gave our police department raises hourly and also the percentage, because we had to be competitive in this market for our officers. And what we're told is that they like the fact that Rochester's a nice town, but also we care about their mental health. We have physical fitness for them. We have mental health check-ins with them. It's not just that, I make this much money an hour. It's a demanding job. And, people kind of sometimes criticize them that they're sitting in a parking lot. Well, they're writing a report and you don't know what they just left. So we're lucky. We have a great fire department. We have a great police department. But the city council has made sure we have the right investments so these people can do their jobs correctly and safely.
All right, Shaun. And I guess by the time we talk next, we will be able to talk about the regional sports center location. And the budget process will be wrapped up, right?
Wow, won't this be an exciting next month's?
All right. Well, it's great to have you back on the program, Shaun. I look forward to our next opportunity.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and your listeners and all their questions.
Shaun Palmer, Rochester City Council member on Rochester Today. It's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and